Yo, welcome to episode 34 of the Put On Podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Derek D. How are you?
I'm good, man. What's going on? I like the new shaved head look you got going there.
I know I did it the wrong time of the year. I feel like this is a cut for summer, and it is not that right now, but I had to mix it up. I was in Thailand. I said, honestly, you have short hair. Have you ever had a buzz?
I did it during COVID. I just decided I'm not getting a haircut anytime soon. So that was like the last time I did it. And I did it one time prior to that before college.
Okay.
Those are the only two times that I remember doing it.
It's nice not having to, I normally have longer-ish hair. It's nice not having to shower, to do the hair. Like your hair is
Yeah.
wet, you can just roll wherever. I normally wear hats. I'd barely been wearing a hat. I also, it's a little bit like, the overall vibe and ethos. I just feel harder with a buzz cut. You can't fuck with, like, you look at me on the street the wrong way. I just feel, I don't know, something about a buzz cut for me.
How does Jules like it?
Loves it. Loves it.
Loves it.
Apparently it was her idea. So, either way, but yeah, man, I know we were talking before, just on, growing pains, and we're obviously on 34, and, with my travels, I've been overseas for 4 months now, and it's crazy. It's coming to an end. I'm back in Canada, stateside, in a couple weeks, but the Wi-Fi and connection is obviously spotty. Even the service, sometimes I've been on data hotspotting my computer. Sometimes I'm on the Wi-Fi. I think if I'm going to do more travel, I need some sort of Ethernet that is just going to be consistent, so I can, promise the listeners that when I'm off next, I'll have that. But yeah, there's been a little bit of talking back and forth over each other, a little bit of lag. Video's not been great. So yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed it a lot. Even like right now, I'm noticing like when you're like moving, it's like shh, and maybe I'm just like hyper aware of all these issues. But we've had video issues, we've had audio issues, we've had lagging, and then like last episode, I was watching it back, and I was just like, and it hasn't even gone out yet. It will by the time this gets out, but I was just mad at myself. You were talking about your water fast. I wasn't paying attention. It completely like botched that entire segment. And then I was talking over you, and I don't know. I think it kind of brought me back to our first episode where we said that this was going to be a learning process, and where we're going to develop and get better from episode to episode. And even though we're now at 30 plus episodes, that last one humbled me and made me realize we still have a ways to go. And it also just reminded me about that first mission we had, where we set out on knowing that there would be growing pains along the way, and we had to embrace them. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that, like it's not perfect yet, and we're doing our best, but there's whenever it's like a ragtag group that doesn't have the full production, engine behind us, there's always a chance that there's going to be some issues.
The one thing I'll say on that is it's interesting, right? Because we come on this and want the conversation to flow as naturally as possible. And so I don't want to come on this and be like, yeah, the camera's on, we're recording, I see that, and change how I'm talking or how the conversation is flowing. But at the end of the day, it does a little bit, of course, as all podcasts will, because you are in front of the camera. But I always look at it from a sports lens, and before I go playing a game or pitch or whatever it is, I would probably prepare for that and do different things, and want to be on my A game every time. And so there's an element of that where every time we come on, it's like, I want to get my points across, I want to have interesting conversation, I want to be on my A game. But then if I'm thinking about that, then I'm not fully natural, because that's the sports comparison, is like, I'm getting prepped for the game, and when I go in, I'm dialed in, I'm locked in, but it's not my full natural state. We're not flowing
Right.
as we would be off camera. And so it's an interesting dichotomy in my opinion. And I'm sure all podcasters feel similar and go
I think,
through similar growing pains.
yeah, I just like, I think it's a good point, and what it makes me think about is that what it boils down to is just the more reps you get, is the more natural you become at doing it. And I don't know. There was, if we go back to the beginning, I bet it's just terrible, and I feel like we're a lot better now. Um, but still, like, I know that I can get better. I know that we can get better collectively, and there's a lot of verbal ticks, and there's a lot of things that we do, and I want to be more conversational. Like, that point that you made about getting out all your points, that's my biggest issue, is like, I have so many things I want to say, but really I want to have a conversation with you about it. So I'm going to do my best this episode to have that conversation with you about the different things that we're talking about, so that we can keep it like in a good little in between place.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm with you. Yo, just quick before we get into segments, I wanted to mention this to you on the live before, offline, bro.
Yeah.
So last Sunday, like a week ago, I had, just on a sports gambling tip, I had 150 bucks in my account, and just like, I started with 150, I took it up to a few grand, went all the way back down to 150, and was just like, okay, this account's kind of whatever, 150 done. And so, whatever, I put a 6-teamer NFL last Sunday, 150 to win a few grand, whatever. That hit. And then over the week, that $150 last Sunday is now 7 grand. And
Oh my God.
so I was just, thinking about it, and I don't, I, I, I think it'll be 10 in the next couple of days. And so I'm just wondering if, other people have runs where they can take it. Man, we're talking about almost 100x, yeah, 150 in a week. Through obviously it's not 10 grand is not changing my. There's crypto and other things that I might get better gains in terms of overall, but still, I think it's ridiculous. So I just wanted to call that out and see if you thought that, if you've heard that from anyone else, if other people are having success, in the sports gambling world. Um,
Um, are other people? Well, first off, nice humble brag there about winning all this money and about doing so well. I'm proud of you. I'm excited for you. No, I haven't heard a lot of other
no,
people talk. What?
it's just, man, it's just the 100x. You
Yeah.
you talk about you getting 100% gain, then you talk about 1,000% gain, and I think the 10,000, especially just being in the crypto world right now, and
Yeah.
wanting to 2, 3, 5, 10x your money. And some people have got crazy stories and crazy gains. Most people lose money, but just the thought of being able to take $100 and make 7K or 10 grand in a week is just ridiculous, like ridiculous to me. Obviously, a lot of luck involved, but it was
Yeah.
just I was like, what the fuck?
Well, I think it's amazing, but whenever I think about those types of things, it kind of gets me a little bit crazy. It's especially like on the crypto with like meme coin type. I have friends that like dabble in that world. I know you dabble in that world, and it's like, yo, I just made 100x on this investment that I made, and I'm just like, great, like that's awesome. I'm happy for you, but I don't know. It's like, it's one of those things where you feel like, well, all right, now I'm going to go chase something.
But then
I
you
do
get
that with,
fucked.
yeah. And with sports betting, it's the same way. I really don't bet anymore on sports because I know how slippery of a slope it is for me. Yes, you can go on those magical runs, but then losing is just, this again, this is just my opinion, losing is just so much worse than winning is great. Like I can't stand the losing money part of it. It kind of outweighs the amazing returns that you could win by going on those runs.
I hear you. I think the thing for me is I don't get attached to the money at all, because I see that sort of as money that I didn't have. So
Yeah.
now it's the seven. Man, mind you, the 150 to 7, I lost, 5 with it. It could easily be 12, 13, 14. Like, I'm going high risk. I don't really, but I don't give a shit if, I lose that or make that. I'm going high risk, high reward, because that wasn't mine in the first place. So that's kind of
Yeah.
how I see it. And I think the point about the, people in meme coins and stuff, at the end of the day, sure, you might get lucky once or twice, but it's not sustainable. And you probably only put in at most $100. If you're going in those super, so it's, again, you're not getting, to me, I would rather get again, if we're talking hypotheticals, a 10x gain on something that I put 100 grand in. So now I'm in a mill versus 100x. I only put $100 in, or that,
Right.
it's all relative.
Yeah.
Um,
True.
but cool. Yeah. So I have got put on put offs for you. This is the
Okay.
put on put off segment. I've got 15. So my first one for you is the NBA in season tournament.
I'm gonna say, um, oh, that's a good one. I'm gonna say put off because I honestly feel like, and even though the Knicks are probably like they're
Yeah, they're
they're
doing
in the
well.
quarterfinals, I think, yeah. Um, I just think it's so manufactured. Like it doesn't mean anything. Like you win the NBA Cup, who cares? All that really matters is winning the championship, and there's no tradition there. It's not like footy where like you have these in season,
Different tournaments
really,
that matter for sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
tournaments
yeah,
that
yeah.
matter. To me, it's eh.
What would you say though that what about the MLB All-Star game in the past? Obviously, it mattered for who was home during the World Series. Is that different in your mind because there is some sort of, or home versus away is not a big enough effect?
I thought that was an interesting little wrinkle. And I think that matters, home field advantage in the championship. So I like that, but to me, this is just it goes towards your record, so you could like lose a game in the cup, like in the championship, that actually, you know,
Yeah.
ends up having an impact on your seeding in the playoffs. And I know that they kind of ratcheted it up a little bit more for these games and the courts and whatever. Like I appreciate the attempt. I just put off for me.
Okay. Digital detox.
Don't even know what that means. Put off.
What you did, trying to take time off.
Oh, you're saying taking the time off. Oh, put on 100%. Because yeah, I'm always thinking about that. I don't want to spend as much time on my social media apps or just on my phone over the weekend. I had that thought process and I was reading instead. So put on.
AI influencers.
Um, the term of it really is a put off to me, but and because I just influencers in general, like I don't like that term. The subject matter, AI, it's interesting. I want to learn more about AI. So like that part is interesting, but I just don't like the thought of an AI influencer. Put off.
Players mic'd up in game.
Put on. Love that. Especially if you get like a really charismatic person that's mic'd up. So like, the other day they had Josh Hart. He was mic'd up and it was amazing because Josh Hart's like hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually I like it because I just like getting that like behind the scenes, like those candid moments during a game. Put
Okay.
on.
Espresso martinis.
I don't drink a lot of them, but put on because anything coffee, espresso, like anything, and mixing it with alcohol, I like it. Put on.
Okay. Robot vacuums.
Put on. It's ingenuity at its
True.
finest. Like
True.
again, I don't own one. Um, but I've been thinking about buying one lately because I'm just like I walk around my house and I just see little dust bunnies all over the place, and I'm just like, oh, this is so annoying. I gotta like reach down and whatever. So put on. It's a smart idea, smart invention.
Okay. What about crossword puzzles? I want to see your age here.
Well, when you put it like that, I honestly put off because I don't do them.
Okay.
Um, and
Are you a
Like
Wordle guy?
I'm not a Wordle guy. I'm not a Wordle guy. I appreciate the fact that people do them and like, spend time, it's like an old school thing to do. That part of it I respect, but I'm going to say put off just cuz personally I don't do them.
Bonus, what about Sudoku?
Back in the day maybe a little bit, but not really. No.
Okay. What about escape rooms?
Put off.
You don't go
Um
with your kids?
no.
I
Just
guess they're
like
probably too young for an
not an
escape room.
activity I really want to do. I have a little bit of anxiety just naturally, like
Being
don't
trapped in a room.
yeah, I don't really get down with the idea of, doing that for fun. No. Put
Okay.
off.
What about sci-fi movies?
Put on. Um, I'm into aliens. I'm into future stuff, and I like the imagination of it. I like the creativity of science fiction. So it's a definite put on for me.
Okay. I don't see you using this, but as a concept, what about subscription meal kits?
Um, put off. Like I understand the concept of it again in theory, like it makes a lot of sense for a certain type of person. For me, it doesn't make sense because I don't know. I'm just more of like I wake up and I want to see how I feel. I can't just like eat something just because like I have
It's
it like
it's prepped.
yeah, prepped and planned out. I no, I it's like if I'm not in the mood to eat it, I'm not going to eat it.
Okay. What about denim jeans?
Denim. Um put on. I wear jeans pretty much every day. And I've never worn a Canadian tuxedo though. Have you?
Maybe once for Halloween
Yeah.
as a Canadian.
Um I think it's a good little like I'm glad that I don't have to wear a suit every single day and that like jeans are acceptable to go to work in. So I appreciate jeans and denim.
Got you. Got you. What about, I feel like I know your stance on this, but cold plunges.
Um I'm going to say put on.
Oh shit, okay.
Well, again, I don't really do them so much, but I've had moments where I'll do like especially during the summer, where I'll do like the shower, like turn it as cold as
Yeah, yeah.
possible for
Dude,
30 seconds
was that
to a
sorry,
minute.
was that because this was probably 2 summers ago now. Have we been doing the pod for more than 2 years?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Because I remember us having conversations on multiple podcasts around the doing 2 minutes at the start of the shower cold
Yeah.
or ending the shower cold. I remember I went through a phase as well. Did I will have to go back and get the receipts in terms of if I put you on to doing that, you put me on. I was just curious about that.
Probably you put me on if I had to say. That's
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 what
my
I
thinking.
felt too
I just don't like the type of people that are like annoying about it. Maybe
about the cold
that's my own.
plunges, like
Yeah,
loud
just
about it.
like
I'm doing a
yeah,
cold plunge today, Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you. Um, okay. What about spicy food?
Put on. Um, and it happened to me later in life. And honestly, it happened to me because of be- because of getting COVID. I lost my taste and smell, and like I could only
That's
taste.
crazy.
Yeah, for like 6 months, I couldn't taste like a lot of food, and certain things, specifically spicy foods, I could taste. Like I could put hot sauce on, and I could taste it more. And then I developed like a real love for spicy food after that. So put on.
Okay, interesting. What about owning a cabin?
Put on. That's like a dream of mine. I wish I could own a cabin out in the woods and have like a fireplace. And one day I'll do that. I like anything like out in nature like that, or just the thought of it. So put on.
Okay, last one. celebrities investing in sports teams.
Um, kind of feel like whatever about it. I'll put off, I guess. Like I just don't care that you're investing in a sports team. Like doesn't mean anything to me. So I would really say like I'm in the middle. It's
You're
I don't care
neutral.
one way or the other. Yeah, I'm neutral. But
Okay.
also my natural like hater instincts came out and I just said put off. So
Yeah, you went there first. Well,
yeah.
we'll end on neutral. That was the last one. I know that you have a. I found this interesting. If you want to hit me,
Yeah. Okay. Um so right. I found this interesting. Haven't done one in a while, but I guess maybe it was last week. I was scrolling on TikTok and I come across a clip of Neil deGrasse Tyson. Okay. And in this clip, he starts saying that chimpanzees are 99% identical DNA to humans.
okay,
Um, they have every muscle and every bone in the same place that we do. They sit like us. They have a lot of the same mannerisms, et cetera, et cetera. But that 1% difference between chimps and humans is a pretty big difference in that humans have civilization. We're able to develop technology like smartphones and the internet and
yeah,
AI. We have intricate languages and abstract ideas. We create art and laws and systems of governance. We can explore space and solve complex problems and on and on. Um, and then he goes on to make the analogy about how the smartest chimp might be capable of stacking boxes to reach a banana, but for humans, our toddlers are capable of figuring something like that out, right?
sure,
So the 1% DNA difference between chimps and humans is basically the difference between the smartest chimp being able to stack boxes to reach a banana and the smartest humans being able to create what he says is the Hubble Space Telescope, right? That's the analogy that he makes. So then he extrapolates this concept to hypothesize that just as humans are 1% more genetically advanced than chimps, imagine an alien species that is 1% more genetically
okay,
advanced than us.
yeah,
Um, these aliens' simplest thoughts would be inconceivable to even the most brilliant human beings at just that 1% DNA difference, right?
that's interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But what if they were 5%, 10%, 50%, 100% more genetically advanced than us? It's pretty hard to wrap your head around that.
Hundred
Um,
percent. Yeah,
and the point is that an advanced species of aliens would probably view humans the same way we perceive chimpanzees. And needless to say, I found that shit interesting.
the 1% is insanely. You wouldn't think that it's that much of a difference. When you say 1%, you wouldn't think it's that extreme. But that is interesting. I will say I found that interesting as well. No shit.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? You know what? I've always had this like, I've always thought about the fact that if there are aliens, they view us similarly to the way that we view,
Which makes sense. Yeah,
animals that are out in the wild, right? Like we're able to go on safari and watch the animals and like, observe them in their native environments. And like, if they're aliens, they're probably observing us and they're like, look at these fucking animals,
yeah.
just like, killing each other and doing all of these things. So when I saw that clip, it spoke to me. I was like, wow, yeah, that's a good point. Neil deGrasse Tyson.
That's crazy. Yeah, they probably are more than 1%. You know,
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's why whenever we're like, oh, but like I can't, I make this point all the time, but like, oh, I can't believe if there are aliens, then why can't we see them? Why haven't we caught them on our iPhones? And I'm always just like, because like again,
we
we're
wouldn't
the
detect
fucking
that.
chimps. Like
Yeah,
it's like the chimps being like, why can't we, take our sticks and stones and build fucking houses? Well, you can't. You're a chimp. That's what we
yeah,
are to the aliens.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's I love that one. Bro, I found this interesting segment's a good one. I think that alien. Now that you brought aliens back after that one clip, Um, yeah, we got to cut that. But so next segment, put
Yeah.
ons.
Yeah.
First one is podcasts. I'll go. So I listen to, it's a Joe Rogan one. Calley Means is a essentially a doctor. Him and his wife, Callie and Casey, went to Stanford, and they both dropped out. And so they've been doing sort of holistic health stuff for the past 30, 40 years, whatever it is, and are super outspoken and stuff. So Joe Rogan had him on, and there were a few interesting points that they were making. And so, you know, it's all about like the healthcare system, specifically in the U.S., the demise of, you know, good health, and all that good stuff. And so I would say the couple of things that were interesting to me. One is that high fructose corn syrup, which would be in most of the things that, you know, the sugary things we consume, whether it be Coke or cereal or whatever it
Hmm.
is essentially, you know, it's not legal in most countries. You can't add that as an ingredient, but the reason that they're doing it in the U.S. is because it tricks your cells to actually the receptors. Again, I'm not a doctor, so don't quote everything I'm saying, but like
Okay.
it tricks your cells to now need more energy and more food. It goes into a metabolic state. And so you actually become hungrier when you eat things with high fructose corn syrup. So it's essentially poisoning you to be hungrier so that you get addicted and you want to eat more. And so
Wow.
at the end of the day, you know, it's just a capitalist society. But that shit, them talking about it in depth, you got to listen to it, and that specific part, the high fructose corn syrup. But I thought that part was super interesting. That it's like tricking your body to essentially say you're hungrier, which then makes you want to eat more, which then you spend more. You're putting more shit into your body. So
Well,
that's one.
that explains a lot to me if that's actually if that's true, because a lot of times when I eat all of that garbage, it does make me hungrier. So I gotta check that out. That's I mean that yeah, that explains a lot. That's what I would say about that.
Yeah, it was like the 1970s when they introduced that. So that was one thing. The other is just around, you know, the crisis of obviously the US specifically has more diabetes, more Alzheimer's, all different things, autism, and so I think that, you know, one thing that's interesting and they really talk about is that at the end of the day, you know, the individuals who we would get our health advice from, you know, the NIH and all these different, you know, corporations, whatever, Stanford Health, they're all funded by, you know, pharmaceutical and food companies. And so at the end of the day, you know, it's one of those things where does common sense prevail? You know, if you're spending billions of dollars and keeping, you know, the industry in tick, you think you're going to write an article or advise against using a product that is so it's a corrupt system that
Yeah.
is but I think at the end of the day, you know, and it's a super fascinating conversation, so you got to listen to the podcast, but at the end of the day, you know, with the political landscape and what it's looking like it's going to be, you know, in 2025, we'll see probably some change from a, you know, RFK, Make
Yeah.
America Healthy Again. I'm curious to see what they uncover. But yeah, you know, if you are someone who is conscious about, you know, your family's health, your personal health, it's definitely one to check out in terms of podcasts because they talk about interesting things. And Callie and Casey are super smart from the conversation and their background. So that's one you got to listen to.
Sounds cool. It's hard not to. It's hard to listen to a Joe Rogan podcast like that and not come out like completely. You know, you're cynical, you're skeptical. You feel like a conspiracy theorist because he's always kind of delving into a lot of those types of topics. But yeah,
I,
I
I
mean,
I do think the nice thing about Joe, though, is, and with his podcast being probably the most popular podcast on the face of the earth, is the vetting that happens with the guests that he
Mhm.
has on. He's not having mom and pop from down
Right.
the road. These people are legit, who have
Yeah.
backgrounds, bunch of history. He wouldn't have these people on if there wasn't truth in what they were saying.
Oh, 100%. And I know also like he's gotten a lot of flack for putting things out there that aren't true. So like I feel like he's definitely hyper aware of like that vetting process.
For
Um
sure.
yeah, it's the private interests of like these different. It just again, it makes me super skeptical and cynical about our government and just the lobbyists and all of these things. It just makes me really jaded about it all. And so
Speaking of the government, quickly, because I've been out of the country for a while, and again, whether I want this to go out or not, we'll see. But did you see that in Canada we have a liberal government, right? It's
yeah,
Trudeau. And a week ago, maybe less than a week ago, they just implemented a bill, passed a law that they are um, taking all guns from. We don't have you know the same gun laws as the U.S., but you can get a gun license and have hunting uh, rifles, guns, etc. They
right.
are disarming every single individual in Canada and sending all of the guns to Ukraine. So he passed a bill, take the people's property, like everyone's guns and their property. I don't, obviously I don't own any guns. Most people I know don't, but everyone's property is being seized over the next month or so and being shipped out to Ukraine.
Wow, I did not know that.
It's
That is,
fucking
oh my god.
bro. How? No, like legit.
Trudeau, man, he's really he's on one these days. I mean, yeah, that's wild. That's really wild. I don't even know what to say to that.
I could say a bunch of things. I'll stop
Don't.
there. But
No, yeah.
who are
I
your
don't
what?
want you to end up. I don't want you to end up in handcuffs. Being thrown into a Canadian prison.
No, yeah, no, I wouldn't either. I was just speaking on the state of what actually happened.
Yeah,
So I
that's
didn't say
just an
anything not
observation.
factual. I did
Yeah,
not say
no,
anything not
yeah,
factual.
yeah.
Um, what are your podcasts?
All right, two quick podcasts. One of them is a Rogan podcast. I was wondering if you were about to say the same one as me, but you didn't. So we had Scott Storch on the other day, who is a very, very famous producer.
Yeah,
Are you familiar with Scott Storch?
name sounds so familiar, but rejog me.
Okay, so he's like super famous rap producer that is one of the most talented piano player, keyboard players, and really like kind of got his start with Dr. Dre and
Okay,
and producing a lot of beats for Eminem and really just like everybody. He's done
sure.
beats for everybody, but um, just a really awesome interview. He had his keyboard there, so he was like playing a little bit.
So
I've wanted to talk about Scott Storch for a while from just a music perspective. Like I was going to put you onto him in a music, just like music vein, but saw that he was on Rogan, so I listened to the interview. It was really good, and basically he talked about his like breaking into the music business. He started out as a keyboard player for the Roots back when they were originally called the Square Roots, which I didn't know. That was a nice
okay,
little interesting nugget that I wasn't aware of beforehand. And then kind of had a falling out with them, wanted to go off and do his own thing, and got this big opportunity. There was this girl that he like knew out in California who introduced him to Dre, and Dre brought him in and basically kind of took him under his wing, and so um he produced a bunch of songs for him. Like the most man, there's so many songs that he's produced. Like he produced Still Dre and like just all of these classic songs. But the crazy thing about Scott Storch is that he became like so rich and so famous at one point. And then he ended up dating Paris Hilton.
okay.
and so he like became like he like became like in the whole limelight when
Yeah.
Paris Hilton was like the most famous celebrity on the planet. And then he became a huge drug addict, and he basically squandered all of his money. Had like a crazy cocaine addiction,
Shit.
and like he was he was like buying yachts. He was doing all this stuff to impress Paris Hilton and like trying to like, impress her. And it's a crazy like story of just kind of, sex, drugs, rock and roll, of like making it and then losing it all and then coming out on the other side. But he kind of took 10 years off and then came back, and it's just a really interesting pod. He talks a little bit about his time with DMX, like he was like
Okay.
really close with DMX and tried to help him when DMX was going through all of his stuff, but ultimately obviously DMX couldn't, he
Yeah.
couldn't get past the addictions. Um and he's just one of those guys that, like, if you watch his videos, the way he's able to freestyle on a keyboard, on a piano, it's incredible. It's
Yeah.
incredible. I put up one of his videos the other days on
I saw
our
it.
stories, and so just want to put you onto that. You should check that out.
What's he doing now?
He's producing a bunch of artists, a lot of up and coming artists, but he's still like working with like, some of the most recognized. Like he was talking about that he was about to do a song with J. Cole,
So he's still in
and
the game. Okay.
yeah, still very much in the game. Now he's not, he's past all of the drug stuff. He smokes an ungodly amount of weed. So like
Okay.
he's not, he still smokes weed. He smokes weed while he's playing. I love Scott Storch. He's just like a great producer. And yeah, so check out that. And then the other pod episode that I wanted to tell you about was, I listened to an episode of the Tim Ferriss Show the other day, and he had on this woman named Cyan Banister. I don't know if you caught that episode, but
No.
I kept seeing stuff about the episode, so I wanted to check it out. Basically, had no idea who she was prior to listening to it, and it's one of the more just like wide ranging, compelling episodes that I've heard in a while. Basically, Cyan Banister is a successful venture capitalist, but her
Okay.
backstory is really amazing. She grew up as a white girl on the Navajo reservation in Arizona.
Okay.
She had a really abusive and complicated relationship with her mother, who abandoned her, which
Okay.
led to her being homeless um, in her youth. So she spent like the better part of her teenage years just like on her own, learning how to survive and deal with adversity really early in her life. And then she basically had all of these serendipitous moments throughout her journey of people helping her, and like moments where she was, on the verge of death, and just like these
Shit.
chance things that happened to her. And eventually, somehow, she ended up um, like discovering the tech industry, and eventually developed a career as an angel investor. So,
That's
um,
dope.
yeah, really, really interesting interview. And she kind of goes on all these different tangents. She talks about like a spiritual awakening that she had. She talks about kind of this idea of, she talks about something that I don't even want to talk about it now because I'm going to talk about it later in the show, but just about, just as like a little teaser, the fact that like we inhabit like our human bodies, but we're nothing but an energy life force inside of them. And I heard that, um, and she was talking about how that life force doesn't disappear, like it goes somewhere. And it was really interesting when she said that, because I have this whole other thing that I'm going to talk to you about, and it was kind of like coincidental. But either way, highly recommend you check out this episode. It was great.
I'm just gonna make a point about the life force.
Yeah.
Is that and us being an energy? I was having a conversation with my boy, shout out Omar in Dubai, and we were talking about food and how you eat fast food, McDonald's, all these different things, and it's all fake. Like it's highly processed. it doesn't come direct from source. And
Yeah.
so us being energy, and to tie back to the podcast I was talking about with the means, eating direct from source, so like a diet that consists of steak and vegetables as fruits that are grown above ground and
Yeah.
other things that come directly from energy from the sun, that is how we are supposed to live, and that is how our energy thrives. And so the idea of eating and having things that are direct from source and actually getting out in sunlight is what we need for our energy and body to thrive. And so I think that it's interesting that you talk about the energy though, and I've kind of been dabbling in like the eating direct from source and getting stuff that from the sun, because if you put shit in your body, bro, you're already decreasing your energy, and your is getting more negative. Your eating McDonald's is more negative, like
I hear you, and you're 100% right about that. But like, you took that in a different direction. Like where I'm gonna take it later is a whole other thing. You'll be like, oh, okay, this isn't what he was talking about. But I
yeah,
hear you
which
on
I'm glad I got that out right now though, so that it doesn't muddy that the point you were making. But
that.
yeah, I think people should look into that, what direct from source actually is. So creators, you go.
Okay. Should I talk about the thing that's related to what we just talked about, or should I talk about my other or the other creator? Because one is like a creator that's not on the same in the same topic, or and then the other one is like kind of. Should I just segue right into this thing?
Segue.
Okay, so let me set the stage. Okay, when I was a kid, one of my biggest fears was the fear of dying. Okay. And like specifically just the finality of it all and the notion of like when you die, there's a good possibility that there's nothing after it. It's just like lights out. That's it. And I remember I remember thinking about it when I was a really young kid. And then there were parts of like my teenage years where I'd think about it and I would get so anxious about it, like
Yeah,
really like a lot of extreme anxiety. And over time, I've been able to kind of get over it to some degree, but it's always still been in the back of my mind. And I dealt with a traumatic thing with losing my father a couple of years ago, and that was really hard for me, and it kind of rejogged a lot of those memories. But anyways, in the last week, I stumbled upon a clip that I watched and I was moved by of some older guy, and basically he's recounting his near death experience, and and then just fast forward, like, and then the algo got to work and start feeding me a lot of these types of videos,
okay.
and basically there's a lot of similarities between these between like these what these people are describing in their experience of dying and then coming back to life. And not only that, it's like they're not actors. Like you could tell like who an actor is. Like they're genuine, they're sincere, they have such detailed accounts of what happened. And I've been watching all of them, and basically I'll tell you a couple of the similarities of these videos that I've been noticing because I wrote them down. um, they all talk about having that out of body experience, right? Of seeing
Yeah,
themselves there, they're on the operating table, or they just had a heart attack or whatever it is, and they see themselves. They're like hovering above themselves, watching it, right? They all have this realization of the fact that our bodies are just like outfits, like costumes that we wear, right? Because this is what I'm talking about, your life spirit living on. Like that what they realized in that moment is that that's not who they are, right? Like their soul is who they are. Like
yeah,
that life spirit is within your body, but your body is again just like this costume, right? And then they talk about this thing of seeing the light. And a lot of people have talked about they see the light,
sure.
and they're walking towards the light, but describing it as like a white light that's not white, that's like it's like a warm like rainbow, like a colorful white light that is so they can't even describe it in a way. and that there are other beings there, and that that are communicating with them, and that they can't see them, and then they all have this moment of being told that it isn't their time, right? And then all of them not wanting to go back in their human form because of how content they finally feel, and how satisfied and how wonderful they feel in this state, right? So I'm watching all of these clips, and granted, there's also, if you go online, there are clips where people have some pretty hellish experiences of when they
Yeah, I
die
can imagine.
and
Yeah,
come
yeah,
back to
yeah.
life. Some of them where they're like they see demons and they whatever. But I guess why I'm mentioning it is because it was pretty convincing to me in some ways, and it just gives me a little bit of hope that that when you die, that's not the end, you know? And it made me think about my dad, and it made me think about the idea of just like, after this life is over, I like to think about the idea of there's more to it, like maybe you're seeing your loved ones, or maybe you're moving on to another life, or maybe you're going to this great place. I just really was convinced that it is not lights out. It's not the end. It's just almost like the beginning. And that maybe you've had multiple lives. And I just think there's something there. I know I sound like a fucking kook to some people, but like that's what I wanted to talk to you about, was near death experience content. That's what's been hitting my feed.
I've never seen stuff on my feed. It's interesting that you've been, you caught one video and you've been fed that. I think that most people believe, at least most people that I talk to, that you are, you have lived several lives. Whether, people love to say, "Oh, I was a dog before,"
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I don't. I think for me to consume that and to think about that just isn't my style, and but I could see how that's super interesting to some people. And yeah, I mean,
It's not my style either. I didn't like go like try and find it. I saw
which
this
is,
one guy's
yeah,
clip, and it was so like riveting, and it was so like, man, he really has such a detailed description of like what he went through. And then I saw another woman, and she had such a detailed thing that I felt like this is real. Like even if it was just a dream state that they had, it was real. But the similarities, as I watched more and more of them, it was like a little bit too, it was like too much of a coincidence. I don't know. And
were they
it's
in
yeah.
podcast form? Were they just having conversations with someone else talking about their stories, or
They were different. They were different. Some like one was podcast form, one was just like, somebody like videotaping themselves. Somebody was like
okay,
in an interview, like on a television show. They were all different, forms of the actual content.
selfie style? The only one that I can think I've maybe seen similar to that is this guy who gets engulfed by a whale, and he's like in the
Mm.
whale's friggin', like he's in the whale, and he's
Yeah.
like talking about the 3 minutes, whether the whale's gonna let him out or not. He's seeing the light, all, and then he ended up obviously living. But that was the only one I think I've seen like that.
But that's not like even in that situation, that guy's not dead, right? Like he was alive while he was in the whale. These people were dead. They were like
Okay, okay,
they
so
were
it's
dead,
different.
and they
Okay,
came back to life. But
yeah,
shout out to that guy in the whale. That must have been a fucking trip for the guy. Just
that's got to be one of the
just like
craziest
in the
fucking
whale
stories.
with like fish going by and just like shit.
Yeah, talk about
Uh
being claustrophobic, my guy.
yeah, seriously. You have any prayers you want to put me out? Because I have one more after you go.
Yeah, I got a guy. His at is Oren Meets World. And his bio, and he kind of brands himself as the internet's creative director. So I think with where you're at, and your creative juices, I think it's someone that you would get a kick out of in terms of the way he thinks about things and the type of content he makes. But yeah, just different interesting tidbits from um, all walks of social, and different things, marketing tactics, other things. But all things creative design, creative elements, storytelling. he's got maybe 300,000 followers, and I think he'll get to a mil in 2025. But he's a good content creator, so yeah, I would check him out. But he's like a
Well,
creative director sort of guy who does his own has his own business.
well, what does that mean though? The internet's creative director, like, how does he? Give me an example of that.
Essentially, looking at different social trends and or campaigns that different companies or people are running, and talking through, putting his own spin. Yeah, I think where I'm going with this is I think this is something that you could do in terms of like
Hmm.
you have a million ideas on all things, and being able to kind of put your creative spin and element on and just have that live as evergreen content. I think that would be interesting. So yeah, it's sort of providing his insight on existing social campaigns, trends, etc.
Got it. It feels like it could be one that I would appreciate. And
I would
also,
say
I feel like you love, the experts that in their different fields that provide insights. Like that's a type of content that you really kind of gravitate towards.
it's because just being able to learn through social and get
Yeah.
some sort of insight about something that I find interesting is just, I'd much rather scroll IG and get tidbits here and there than attend an hour lecture. So for me to be able to learn and actually consume is how I want to do it. And I love that. So,
That's the best part of social is learning some stuff that you've never, thought of before.
and then deep diving on
Yeah,
that
yeah,
shit.
yeah. And or even like applying it in some way, right? Like, yeah, of course you can watch a million entertaining videos, and I do, right? I'm watching dogs get manicured and groomed, like whatever, getting massages. But the stuff where you learn something is amazing, and you're like, okay, this is maybe part of the reason of why I'm not taking that digital detox. It's because I get something out of it. But
Yeah. 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 You have another creator?
yeah, obviously the other one I was talking about was on some serious shit, but so on like the non-serious tip, came across this handle the other day. I feel like you've definitely seen it. Okay, it's at Shep Mates, SHEP Mates. It's two brothers. Their names are Archie and Miles Shepherd, and they do comedic sports content.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And they're particularly known for their skits where they lip sync iconic sports commentary. And it's really impressive because I don't know how they're able to memorize all of the lines of these announcers and then act them out at the same time. And it's just such a random talent and yet so funny. So the first one that I saw that was just amazing was they did one for the Charlotte Hornets, who have like a broadcast team that's known for getting overly excited and
Yeah.
being pretty over the top. So that one was just incredible. It's like the guy like screaming, and then it's like the color guy kind of doing like. So it's just so funny. And then they have a really good soccer one, and they have a good baseball one. They do it for like every sport, and I think I didn't do enough research to know like where they're located, but they might be international guys because they're like doing darts, and I feel like they might be Australian. I'm not sure. I gotta look into it a
I
little bit
think they're
more.
Australian.
Yeah,
I've seen these guys. I want to say they're Australian. We can look into it, but I'm pretty sure they're Australian.
they kind of remind me of the Pointer Brothers. Like they have that kind of like
Except
look,
down under. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They are like
Uh,
it's crazy how talented they are in what they do, though. Yeah, I've seen these guys.
so clever, so brilliant. It's brilliant, and you know how I get. Like if you have that random little like niche thing that you do, that's always going to appeal to me. I was sending the Charlotte Hornets clip to a bunch of my buddies, and yeah, check them out. Shepmates.
Okay, and yo, last quick on the social. Last
Sure.
quick thing on the social. Have you seen the chill? Chill guy.
Yeah.
I cannot scroll two posts without it being a chill guy meme
Yeah.
on TikTok right now. And man, it's crazy to me just the concept of how something as simple as that, the character is nothing special. It's being a chill guy is taking over the internet. And so the where I'm going with it is the ebbs and flows of internet culture is
Yeah.
so fucking fascinating, because how
Yeah.
does that, get as much attention and eyes as it does, and then the next thing is a fuck gorilla Harambe. Like just the
Well, let me ask you a question. What do you think it is about Chill Guy that's like captured the hearts and
relatability,
mind? Relatability. Okay. In what
in
way?
my opinion, because of the way that the character is visually drawn, and because of all the different memes and the idea of being a chill guy. I think it's just super like relatability. I think it's just super relatable. You see something, you're like, oh yeah, that is kind of me. That's funny.
It's also like, in my mind, first off, it kind of reminds me of Arthur, like the
For
Arthur
sure.
meme, right? It kind of
Yeah,
got
yeah,
that
yeah.
drawing style. I think there's some mental health like aspect to it where there's something really sweet about it, right? Where it's like, you like, don't worry, everything's gonna be okay type of vibe, and like, or like,
Yeah,
what,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
trying really hard, and like you be, give yourself some grace. Like, I love that whole vibe to it. And it's one
You,
of those memes that I think that's why, like when
I agree.
especially in these kind of like trying times with all of the, the divide and between people and all the political stuff and all the world stuff, like it's like the superhero that we need is just some like chill guy dog, like cart drawing to, unify us in some way.
You know what the funniest thing is that
What's that?
the artist, the creator of Chill Guy,
I,
is
I
not
know
a chill guy.
I know I heard about that.
He's crazy. He's
The
not.
least chill guy.
He's the least
Right.
possible, man. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's ironic. But you got music?
I do have music. Okay. So, I like to put you on to a lot of like newer artists
Yeah,
and people that I'm discovering, and putting kind of like everybody onto that. But specifically, I heard a clip the other day. I heard a song the other day, and it made me think like, man, I gotta tell. Like, does Cal know about some of the classic hip hop, like some of the stuff that I grew up on? And then it made me think, you know what? If not, I gotta tell him about it. So I have two. Well, I have one group to put you onto and one artist. Okay.
yeah.
First group is one that I grew up just like one of my all time faves. They're called Gangstar,
I'm
a
looking them up.
legendary hip hop duo consisting of Guru and DJ Premier. DJ Premier, a lot of people call him Primo. Basically, some of the pioneers of conscious and kind of introspective rap music, hip hop.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember I discovered them when I was in, I have to say, like seventh grade.
Okay.
And I listened to them just like nonstop for it felt like 2 years. And now every once in a while I hear one of their songs, but it was like the first time I was listening to rap music in my mind that addressed themes like social issues and spirituality. And Guru has this like such a well, they have such a distinct sound, right? It's like Guru has this really monotone voice and delivery and just like such a cool like vibe about him. And then Primo's production style is super recognizable. He like samples all of these different little audio things and he kind of puts them into the beats, and he's produced so many hit songs for artists outside of Gangstar, Biggie and Nas. Like he did some of the some of the songs on Illmatic, and um so he's still around. Guru unfortunately and tragically died like a couple years ago.
Okay.
Had some health issues. But I just want to like put you onto them and some of my favorite tracks. You'll hear some of them and you'll be like, "Oh, I know this song." But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mass Appeal is like a classic. You Know My Steez, that was probably my favorite growing up. Work, Full Clip, Royalty, Above the Clouds. Those are the songs. And Full Clip, the first part of Full Clip is a line where they go, Big L, rest in peace. And that's the other artist I want to put you onto, a guy named Big L.
Okay.
And He is a rapper from Harlem, New York, who was originally part of a hip hop collective called Digging in the Crates, which included Fat Joe and Lord Finesse from Brand Nubian.
Okay.
And he's one of these guys who was like he was like Nas before Nas. Like
Gotcha.
he was like his lyricism and his wordplay was unmatched. And he was even kind of like Jay-Z before Jay-Z. And one of his greatest songs is called 7 Minute Freestyle, and it's with Jay-Z.
Okay.
And it's when Jay-Z, it was before Jay-Z was Jay-Z. It was like when he had a different flow. He used to
Okay.
like rap really fast
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and like had this whole different kind of like cadence. But he had this song called 98 Freestyle where he had a line. I wrote it down because I just, but turn your tux red. I'm far from broke, got enough bread. And mad hoes, ask Beavis, I get nothing but head. When I heard that line, ask Beavis, I get nothing but head. Like
Crazy.
Beavis, but I'm like, oh man, this guy's amazing. And then he has a song called Ebonics, another classic where he breaks down all the hood slang. And that
Okay.
was basically the inspiration for Central C's LA Leakers freestyle, where he's talking about all the British slang, right? So
Gotcha.
he's got a couple of songs, Flamboyant, Put It On, Deadly Combination. That one was with Tupac, Ebonics, the 7 Minute Freestyle, the 98 Freestyle. Those are the songs that I would check out. He was a guy that I listened to a lot again, like when I was in my childhood. He's another guy who tragically, he was murdered very early at the age of 24 in a drive-by shooting right before he was about to really just blow up like mainstream. But all the real hip hop heads, like especially if you're from New York, you know about Big L. So those are
No
my two
shit.
music put-ons.
Okay. Yeah, so a little throwback. I feel like I have heard some of the songs now that I'm looking at them, but yeah, I'll have to give them a listen because there's no way with pre 2000s, like before I was born, that I would know the name of them, but I know songs to hear them. So I got to go listen and I'll report back. But no, those are two good shouts. That when you said he got shot in a drive-by, yeah, he was about to blow up. For me, again, I have no
Pop
clue.
Smoke, is that who
Yeah,
you're thinking?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so you're on the
It's
same
a
page.
little bit like that. There's a little bit. That's a good. Didn't even think about that before you said it, but right when you started like talking about
Oh,
it, I knew that's where you were going to go with it.
but my question on that is, did he have stuff that came out after, after the fact, like after he died, that was good?
I think there was some stuff that was released. It's hard for me to remember. It happened so long ago. But I think there were some like similar to Pop Smoke.
Okay, okay, yeah, but that's what I thought of when you said that, Pop Smoke. That's funny that you just said that. So yo, travel put on quick. Have you been to Japan?
No,
You never been? Bro,
never.
this place is amazing. Uh, I've been to a lot of countries. Japan would be top of the list, but my Japan put on would be. It's tough to just say one because everything's so good. The first thing I'll say is truly, I don't think there's a better cuisine than Jap in
Mhm.
terms of the variety you get, the different flavors, the nothing beats Japanese food in Japan. Like I really don't think you can beat it.
They treat
So
it like art, right? It's
what
like
it is,
amazing. Yeah.
it's a you do the omakases and you can do sushi ones or steak ones or teppanyaki, a bunch of bro. It's a whole experience, and it's just to me the way that you would never think that food could dance in your mouth,
Uh-huh.
and that's what they make you do. And so, the one thing that I was going to put you on to is in your lifetime, you have to have Kobe beef in Kobe. Like that experience was just fucking. Again, you who I wouldn't think, yeah, this is a must do. You got to eat this in this specific
Yeah.
place, but it's just like you never have a better cut of steak,
Right.
and it's like this is ridiculous. So um, that is one, and then the other thing I would put you on to is in Tokyo. The specific area is Harajuku, and it's like, it's food meets culture meets, late night bar spots, karaoke, vintage. It's just the whole vibe of that place, the bright lights, the secondhand shopping, the food spots. Man, it's unreal. So yeah, Harajuku in Tokyo. If you ever go to Japan, you have to go to that spot in Tokyo, and you have to have Kobe beef in Kobe. I've still got like a week and a half here, so there might be more that comes up. But yeah, man, I'm gonna hit the slopes next week, and then back.
Japan's on my bucket list. I'm like fascinated by that place. I'm very jealous of all of your
It's
world
crazy.
travels. I mean, yeah, I just remember watching one of the Bourdains where he was there, and it's just like, what an interesting place. And like when you were talking about the spot you just mentioned, it just reminded me of like him going into those markets with all like the little,
Yeah.
you're like in this like hallway, and then there's like all these little restaurants and bars, and it just seems like such a just like a really interesting place to go to. Such a cool little spot, huge country.
But like nowhere else,
Yeah, like
I've
nowhere else, right?
I feel like, some places you go in Europe, for example, it's similar. Obviously, language might be different, people might be different, but it's similar vibes. You're gonna get the same thing here and there. Versus, I lived in Asia. Obviously, was born in Thailand, and some Asian countries and culture is similar. I've
Yeah,
never been anywhere like Japan in terms of. I mean, yo, like even just the onsens, like you go in naked and it's like a hot tub and you're bathing with people naked. Nowhere else in the world like is that acceptable, even in Asian culture. So it's like
right.
just the things they do here are very different.
They have their own. They have such a distinct culture, and there's something very classy about like Japan too. Like they really hold themselves to like a
High
really
standard.
high. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But yeah, man. No, I'll you have a
I
snack.
have one last. Yeah, on the you asked me during put on put off like spicy food. I'm gonna put you on to. Actually, let me first ask you: do you go to Trader Joe's?
We don't have Trader Joe's, so no.
It's unfortunate. So this is going to be for everybody else except for you. Then Trader Joe's is big spot, obviously in the states. My wife is obsessed with it. She pretty much only watches Trader Joe's like content. Like that's what that's her
Okay.
favorite thing. Anyway, she brought home a little snack the other day from Trader Joe's called Trader Joe's Spicy Snack Bar Mix, and it's like little like sesame
You
like
love that shit.
it's like pretzel chips and like these little like spicy almonds, and it's like I can't believe I forgot to write down all the different things that are in there, like little sesame stick, little like kind of bagel chip thing, all spicy. Probably one of the most addictive snacks I've had in recent memory. I can't tell you how many times I went to take a few of them, like in moderation, and then just ended up shoveling handfuls of it into my mouth like a savage. But outside of patio chips, also a Trader Joe's specific
Yeah.
snack. This spicy snack bar mix is fire,
Is it new?
dangerous. I don't know, but like it's just so fucking good. I literally I was like, and my mouth was on fire, and I'm like sticking my hand all the way in there and like just like getting it all over myself. I was like, okay, I gotta tell Cal about this, or at least tell the audience.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm sure there's similar things to that I could probably get my hands on, but spicy is it like, but it's like trail mix sort of vibe.
It's
But
yeah,
but but
trail
obviously
mix.
obviously not like,
It's
traditional.
like a much better Chex Mix spicy
Yeah, Chex Mix
version.
is what I was
Yeah.
looking for.
I'll
Yeah, yeah,
send you
yeah.
I'll send you a couple. I'll send you some. Okay. Send me your address in
Hope,
Japan.
hopefully I'll be to the States at some point.
Right.
Um, but yeah, man. Okay, cool. So last segment, 20s thought, dad thought.
You
You
go
want to go?
first.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. My 20 something thought is there's no better time than now, in the sense that, as a 20-year-old, you know, you're only growing up. You're only gonna have more responsibilities, more shit. My cousin just got engaged yesterday, and so he's maybe a couple years older than me, but moving on to the next phase of his life. And it's just like one of those things where like, shit, man, life comes at you quick. And so, I think that all of us who are in our 20s should be, you know, figuring out what we want out of life. I think too many people sort of coast and don't realize that, the best time is right now because it's where you're at and it's the present. And so to actually figure out what you want and then go after it, I think for me, I've realized that really there's no at the end of the day, I don't have kids to feed. I have, most of us, hopefully most of us in our early 20s at least, don't have kids to feed. I understand situations are different, but not as many responsibilities. If I can be on the road for 4 months, clearly I told you my biggest struggle was figuring out what to eat.
Right,
So
for lunch.
I, I just think that, in your 20s is the time to figure it out. I think, we need to figure it out. But whatever it is you want or you think you want, go there, try that. You might fail, but then you can always fall back on something. You can always, fall back on whatever it is. I think there is so much opportunity now with the internet, with, traditional opportunities, etc. And so, yeah, man, I'm all in on work and just fucking grinding it out, getting what I want as quickly as I can. And so I think 2025 is the year of the snake, which I'm a little bit believer in the Chinese zodiac. I'm not sure. We talked about it, I think, a little bit, but yeah. So I'm feeling very eager. I mean, like being over here is great, but it's like I can't get as much, and I guarantee no one else has, not many people would have this problem where, you're in Thailand, you're in Japan, you're in Mexico, you're in all these dope places, and all I'm thinking about, and you can ask Jules, this is like, shit, I got to get back to the room, or I got to get back to place, I need to get on my computer, I
Mhm.
need. And so, I think that I feel as though, and I enjoy it, so it's not but I feel as though I haven't earned the right to, be off all the time and to enjoy and to relax yet. And so, I'm ready to get after it and enjoy down the line. But I do enjoy, this and being on it. So, yeah, it's just like every time I'm out, I'm like, shit, I'm thinking about this. I gotta get back. Which, yeah. So
I'm accustomed to the feeling, man. I know the feeling. But I will say this. I think you're going to be figuring it out your entire life. Like it's just, you're at you're an early stage, you're in your 20s. It's like it's a good time to figure it out. It's a good time to experiment. It's a good time to kind of get
take a
a better
risk
sense of yourself, right? Yeah, see what appeals to you, what doesn't, take those risks. But man, you get into your 30s and you're still figuring it out. You get into your 40s, you're still
for
figuring it out.
sure.
You're always figuring it
It's
out,
always
I
changing too.
yeah, and it's all you're always evolving, you're always learning more about yourself. So I think it's always just where you're at in life that you have those feelings. For me, a dad thought. Well, I have two just quick things. One is like a little story. Basically, my mom moved out of her house. This was my childhood home. I might have mentioned this to you where she was moving out all of her stuff, and I told my brother, I'm like, there's an attic in the garage that we never went into. I'm like, I have to go explore that attic before she moves out. I have to see if there's treasure there or like whatever the
Yeah.
fuck is going to be in there. And I go in there, and what I find is 5 bags of old sports cards. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, shit. Like now I have a project. I'm just going to go through all of these. They're obviously probably all shit, whatever, but like I have to. I just have to. So I put them in buckets. I brought them home, started going through them, and it's like reliving my entire childhood. It's like all the baseball cards and basketball cards. There's wrestling cards. There's
Yeah.
little like action
It's
figures and
awesome.
little all these little like interesting things, and there's postcards, and I'm like fine. I'm, again, like I'm reliving my childhood going through these bags of cards. I started taking, first off, the amount of funny cards back like in the 70s and 80s. Like I made a whole pile. Here are cards of like just like cool, like rookie cards of like players that are good. None of them are in good shape. Here's a pile of just like funny cards that I
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah.
do a whole content thing around, and I'm
That's
going to keep that.
hilarious.
And my youngest son, Freddie, is like going through them with me. And he's really getting into wrestling. And at one point, he's like, Dad, look, I found something. Like, is this good? And he pulls out an old Hulk Hogan card that turns out is a Hulk Hogan rookie card. And
Shit.
I'm like, it's just such a cool thing. I'm like, oh my God, that's like, and then I looked it up. I'm like, that's his rookie card. We looked on eBay. The first price we saw for it was $500,000. It's not $500,000. It's like $5. If it was like a
Oh,
PSA like 10, it's like a $5 card, like whatever, $20 card or
okay.
something. It was not in good condition, but it's just this weird thing of like kind of this blast from the past of going through all of my old stuff. And so that was the first thing. Not a thought, just a funny story.
Nostalgia. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
nostalgia. The second thing is just that I walk my kids to school every morning, which is like a really sweet thing that I get to do. And I live right by their elementary school.
Yep.
And when we get to the school, I give them a hug, I give them a kiss, I say, have a great day. And then my kids kind of like wave to me as they're walking. And my youngest, Freddie, always does this thing where he waves to me, and then he walks a couple steps, and then he turns back around and waves to me again, and then he
That's
walks a
nice.
couple more steps. And it's one of those things where I know it's like a memory that's just going to be burned in my brain forever, And it's
Yeah.
like I can acknowledge how special that moment is now. It's like, it's every single time he does it, it's like I know that I'll be talking about that moment, that memory
Down the
when he
line.
gets older. And like it's just one of those, it's almost like when you go think back on your life, I'll always remember that
That's
specific thing.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I guess the thought is just, when you have those moments in life, just try and be aware of them so that and have like the perspective of that this is something sweet. This is like what life is all about.
I think that's super interesting and a good shout in terms of at the end of the day, it's just the little things, right? It's
Yeah.
something as simple as him turning around every couple steps that will stick with you for a lifetime. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, man. No, that was good. I like that. I enjoyed that.
Me
Um,
too.
34 in the books. We might still have a little bit of uh, video, audio, but we'll
Yeah.
see. I heard you good the whole time.
Yeah. No, you came across good. Cross your fingers.
I'm
I
actually
think.
surprised that honestly, this is the only hour that I've got no issues, and I've been on for hours. So, um, well, cool, man. Good to chat. On
Yeah.
to the
Safe
next.
travels.
T-pop.
Yep. Later.
We out. Peace. Thank you for tuning into the Put On Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and don't forget to follow us on social at the Put On Pod.